Scared the shit out of me. Say, what's that? I duck.
Hello everyone, Nicky Hawkins here, West Ham Fan TV. Now I'm thinking about doing some more content this season, and one of the bits of content I want to do is, because we're on the world of the internet, we want to catch up with the guys that work on the internet with us, our colleagues. A lot of people think we're enemies, Dave, but we're not, we're friends in real life.
We are good friends, yeah. I don't know where people get this perception from, it's crazy. But no, obviously we collaborated week before last on our podcast, and it's nice to return the favour and do the same on your channel, mate. So yeah, good stuff.
So as you know, we've got Dave from the West Ham Way here, you know, the host of the very popular Phoenix FM show, and just off camera here, you know, protecting his identity as always, the ever reliable ex-West Ham employee. Thank you very much, gents, for joining us on this show.
Pleasure, mate.
I had an idea about what I wanted to talk to you about last week. We was meant to be recording this a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was sort of, I was doing your pod and you was going to do our pod sort of thing. But the way our pod went, it sort of changed my perception a little bit, because I got the opportunity to show the real me, so to speak. And I want to give you guys the opportunity too, because I know we're in this world and, you know, it's not always pure, it's not always plain, there's trolls everywhere who think we're one thing and we're not the other. Just before we go into all of that, obviously Dave, you co-founded Sex, Drugs and Carlton, which is a very successful YouTube channel. I know Kev's not with you anymore with the West Ham Way, but he does, he's gone on to do that on his own. How did that come about?
Well, okay, it's a strange one, because I was never one really to interact with West Ham forums or Facebook groups, but one day, for some unknown reason, I found myself doing exactly that. And I can't for the life of me remember what the group was called now. I wish I could, because I'd happily name and shame it. You'll understand why in a minute. But there was a topic of discussion around Sam Allardyce at the time, and he was getting absolutely fucking brutalised. And whilst I could sympathise with what a lot of fans were saying, I was a fan of Allardyce really, because I think he was brought in to do a job and he'd done a good job for us, and I just didn't like the treatment he was getting. So I'd done no more than give my opinion on it, got an opinion back, gave an opinion back, all very amicable for the first 2.5 minutes. And all of a sudden the admin of this group just fucking lost his shit with me. And I to this day I don't know why. It went into private messages and just started getting ridiculous, and just literally finished with me saying, do you know what, mate, fuck you, fuck your group, shove it up your arse, I'm going to start something that shits all over yours.
It weren't West Ham flags, was it, by any chance?
No, I don't think it was. I'm familiar with the group, but I don't think it was. But on the back of that conversation, that's what I did. So I just thought, I don't know what it's going to be, whether it's going to be a group or a page, or. But I knew, for some reason, I just instantly knew it was going to be Sex, Drugs and Carlton, because it's a good play on words and it's a recognisable, distinctive brand. So I didn't really know what the future would be at that point. But
what year was this, though?
Oh, this would have been 4 or 5 years ago.
So about 2014-ish.
Yeah, there or thereabouts. Yeah, I'd say there or thereabouts. I'm terrible at timescales, but it was there or thereabouts. And I called Kev, because I went to school with Kev Slade, massive West Ham fan. And I said, look, I don't even know what I'm going to be doing here, but I want to do something. And I'm thinking we could just do something a little bit different, a little bit edgy maybe, something in the form of like an online fanzine. I've got a name for it, so do you want to be part of it? And he jumped at the chance, and then we decided to go for a page rather than a group, so it wasn't led by discussions, it was led by content we were putting out there. And then we just tried to kind of take a fanzine approach of it really. So we tried to sort of create features and try and be as funny as possible, try and put a lot of nostalgia around it, but varied content that would attract people to the page. And that's what it did. It started clocking up momentum quite quickly.
This was on Facebook?
This was on Facebook, yeah. It was always Facebook. We didn't really have a presence anywhere else in terms of social media. And then where we really announced ourselves were the interviews that we started doing. And that's when people started to take notice, including Next. I'm sure you'll get to that in a minute. But we got some very good high-tech equipment from people that we knew, and then we started approaching people and asking them questions. And the interviews to this day are interviews I'm very proud of. We're not actually in them, so we created them, we asked the questions, but the questions come up in the edit as text form followed by their answer. And we got to meet so many people through it, you know, and to this day built good relationships subsequently from those meetings with some really good people. And it started to kind of elevate us a little bit, and people started to take notice, including X. And that really was the story of Sex, Drugs and Carlton Cole before it kind of tripped over to my relationship with X and my involvement with the West Ham Way.
Really? So let's skip to the other side of the internet. So on Twitter, I would assume about the same time-ish.
I actually started the Twitter account in 2012. I can remember it because it was on my birthday, and I actually got a phone that was capable of having modern day apps and stuff. So I thought, right, do you know what? I'm going to go on Twitter and see what this is all about.
Stop playing Snake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Actually, not have to save 9 text messages in my inbox. And the young generation don't know the perils we used to go through with our mobiles. But I got
download the rest of the text on this website.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah.
Someone sent you
That's it. No picture messages. So I started about 2012 on my birthday, just because prior to that, like, there'd been ITKs and I'd been reading about them, and my mates, so we'd talk about it at work, and they'd say, "Oh, this fella's said that West Ham are signing, I don't know, Neymar, this player," which actually was.
I remember one about that time. Oh no, maybe it was a bit earlier. But it was Luis Figo.
Yeah, exactly. And I still had my contacts in the club then. Different, well, some are similar, some are different to what I have now. But I had contacts in the club, and I'd say to my mates would say to me, because they know I had those contacts, they'd say to me, "Is this true?" I go, "That's absolute rubbish." And I go, "That's rubbish, that's rubbish." And that's all I seem to be doing the whole time. And then one of my mates, he's a good friend, Vince, he's a good mate of mine and Dave's now, he's been on the show a few times. He said to me, "Well, why don't you create your own ITK account just to actually get some reliable news out there?" And I thought, you know what? Maybe I could do it. Maybe I'll do it as almost like an experiment, and I'll see what happens. So I set it up. I had to think of a name that would stand out, not just be like Source or Agent or whatever, a name that would stand out, but also a name that kind of summed up where the information was coming from. So whilst I, in a loose way, worked with West Ham, the real reason behind the name is that the people I speak to were ex-West Ham employees. So that's the real sort of theory behind it. And I started...
Have you, let me just ask you this, have you always had the iconic gate?
Yeah, and it's almost like, it's like, see, I did a marketing degree at university, right, and they always say that you should have a recognisable, like McDonald's and Nike with their things, a recognisable image that people just associate with you, and obviously the Lyle gates aren't what they were when I had that badge, but I've kept it because that is almost like the logo, so to speak. I wish I wasn't called ex-WHW employee now, I hate the name, but that's another story. And then the first bit of news I tweeted, I remember.
What would you like to be called? Before we move off that bit.
I think I'd actually like to be called maybe my actual name.
Right.
Yeah. Or exactly. Or just a name that I could go with, like a normal name, like Fernando Rodriguez or something. But like a name that I could actually go by, so that I could then go on things. And this anonymous stuff is a little bit restricting at times, hence being off the camera now. But there's reasons I do it, and the reasons I have to do it. But the first bit of news I tweeted, it was just after West Ham had played Liverpool at Upton Park, and Joe Cole had scored for Liverpool against us, I don't know if you remember, and he didn't celebrate it. So I happened to know someone that knows Joe Cole really well, and I just said to him, did he not celebrate that because he's coming to West Ham? And he said, yeah, he's joining West Ham in January. They've already had talks. So the first thing I put out on my birthday, which is Christmas Eve, was that Joe Cole was joining West Ham in January. And obviously he did. So that got people going, who is this guy? And then I just kept doing it. Yeah, so's Dave's.
And so's mine.
You're a Messiah.
Yeah, exactly. And do you know what? We've been mates for about 2 or 3 years before we discovered that.
Once every year, be on the East End Working Men's Club, we rise.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. People always say that there's a reason I get this information. It's not through David Sullivan. It's from an even bigger power. But
Jesus is a hammer.
So basically I did that, and within a week I got about 1,000 followers. So I was like, blimey. And I said to Vince, right, I'm going to stop when I've got 2,000 followers. I got to 2,000, then 3,000, and then I just kept setting myself milestones, and now still 8 years down the line and 63,000 followers. I'm still going. So yeah, it's a journey.
So you're going to stop when you get 64?
I always used to say the ultimate thing was I was going to stop when I was bigger than West Ham's capacity, which I am actually technically now. But I'm too, I don't want to let my brother over there down. So I'm still going.
That's a funny story actually, because when we started YouTube, that was my first goal. To get to the Boleyn's capacity.
Yeah.
Because then you can look around.
That's
and
right.
And you know how many people, it becomes real. That was a milestone for me. Now we're going obviously to the London Stadium.
Yeah.
So, in terms of, we'll get a little bit deeper into this, but in terms of the meet, you guys meeting, so how did that come about and the sort of relationship formed between you two?
Well, it stems from a conversation with you and Kev, didn't it?
Yeah. Kev got in contact with me and I got in contact with Kev and I said I like what you guys are doing initially, because I was writing for a number of websites, and then it came to the point where this website shut down and I had the option of either writing for another website or starting my own. So I thought, right, I'm going to start my own, and I wanted to do as many collaborations as possible. So I wanted to have you guys on with what you do. Hammer's Chat were originally on the website with me at the very early days, you guys on with your videos, and it just came from that. So I spoke to Kev and I just said, look, I like what you guys do. I'd love to have your videos on. Kev agreed straight away. This awkward fucker over here wanted to meet and thrash out terms and stuff.
Do you know the really weird thing is I wasn't big on social media before the Sex, Drugs and Carlton Cole stuff. Yeah. And even when I got entrenched with Sex, Drugs and Carlton Cole, it was always through Facebook. So whilst I'd heard the name ex-WH employee, I didn't know of him like everyone else knew of him, weirdly. So I just, like everything in life, I want to know the ins and outs of everything that I step into, and hence the subsequent meeting at the Queen's.
The Queen's, it was before Southampton, I think, at Christmas, and you just shaken Ian Bishop's hand after he'd taken a slash in the toilet.
That's right, absolutely no regret from my part whatsoever.
And then didn't wash his hands and tried to shake my hand.
So I still haven't washed mine,
And so we met in the pub, and then we just it just clicked quite easily, didn't it? Really, we got on really well. We met up a couple of times. We interviewed Dave and Kev for the West Ham Way channel. They did a few articles and stuff, and then I got approached by this wonderful place here, Phoenix FM, to do a radio show and a podcast. And I approached Dave, and again, Dave was reluctant and needed convincing.
It's the strangest thing. I mean, I kick myself now because I think like a lot of things you go into with this type of thing, I don't know if it's just human instincts, but despite the followers that X had and we had at the time, you just don't envisage it's going to be a massive success. And whilst I was tempted, I didn't want to commit myself to everything, to this every single week, which is what it would be. It'd be every single Wednesday. So I said to him, well, look, I'll do it once a month, and that wasn't good enough for him. I said, look, I'll do it bi-weekly, and he said, it's got to be every week. So eventually, he kind of grinded me down, and thank God you did, because if this would have gone to have been a success without me, I'd be kicking myself massively.
It's a huge success.
Yeah.
Mate, you're telling us, honestly. I mean, the producer once showed us a global map of where all of our listeners are, and it is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. I mean, they're everywhere, you name it, even countries I've never fucking heard of before. It is incredible.
The funny thing you say that, because we get a sort of analytic map for YouTube, so you can click into the analytic and it shows you where sort of your predominant audience are and all that sort of thing. And I think at one point West Ham fans we were in something like 101 countries or something.
It's incredible.
And I'm looking at these, and it's countries like Angola. Reunion was a big one when obviously Payet was here. And I could just imagine some tiny little islands. I was looking some of these places up on the map because, like you, David, I couldn't envision where they were.
Yeah.
It's like little islands in the Pacific off of Hawaii, and I was like, Jesus Christ, internet there.
It's incredible. I mean, I'm literally plucking these from the top of my head now. I can't tell you. There's so many more examples other than this. But there's one of X's friends went to Bermuda and walked into a bar and ordered a drink, and they're playing our podcast in that bar in Bermuda.
The funny thing is, in Bermuda, because of Clyde Best, they've got a bit of a connection to West Ham.
Yeah.
I hadn't really put the two and two together, and what he did is he got his phone and he filmed around this bar and showed it to me, so you could hear me and Dave and Kev at the time talking in the background, and about 30 Bermudans sitting around listening to us in the Caribbean. It was just bizarre.
Yeah, and then one time I called through with my 9-to-5 job. I had to speak to the union about an issue that I had there. So I spoke to the outsourcing company that was the go-between between my firm and the union, and it took all my details down. I mean, this firm were based in Surrey somewhere. It was the arse end of somewhere, and at the end of it, he said, "Yeah, I'll just transfer you through." He said, "Before I put you through, can I say, if I say SDCC, would that mean anything to you?" And I went, "Yeah." He said, "Sex, Drugs and Carlton Cole." I said, "Yeah." He said, "I listen to your podcast every week." And the funniest one I think so far is when X and his wife were at home one day, and X's wife said, "I swear I could hear Dave's voice," and then she said, I can hear my husband's voice," and she said, "Where the hell is this coming from?" Cut a long story short, I think it was driving her mad for about 10 minutes, and she stuck her head out the window, and it was the builders next door doing some landscaping that had us on the radio out there in the garden.
It's unbelievable. And considering I'm meant to be anonymous, my voice is certainly not anonymous, because it's obviously quite distinctive. And if I go to... People think this is fake. They think I've got like a voice machine, but it's actually, unfortunately, my voice. And I basically, if ever I go to West Ham, all that if I talk... Then majority of the time people will say something or give me a funny look, like as if to say,
And obviously there is getting recognised as well, which has happened. That's gone off the Richter scale as well. Away games, they'll recognise us because they recognise me, because obviously they see my face.
And they're putting two and two together, I imagine.
Yeah, on the published podcast, and then he'll go for a piss and start talking or whatever, and then they'll recognise him. And I love it.
Putting on a little...
Sometimes when people come up to me, because I went to the Fulham game, the friendly, a couple of weeks ago, and also I had my 7-year-old daughter, so first game, so I was so protective that I wanted her to have a good time. I didn't want her to have anything that would put off her experience. And literally, as soon as we walked into the away area, these two blokes, big lads with beer in their hands and everything, walked towards me, and they came up to me, nice as pie, just said, "Love what you do, mate, love the podcast, blah 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 blah." And I almost, because obviously I didn't know them, just go, "I don't know what you're talking about, mate," like that. But he'd obviously seen me from somewhere, so yeah. But the feedback we get in person is just.
I mean, honestly, we genuinely love that people love this show. We love it, and I know it sounds cliche, but we genuinely love meeting everyone we get the opportunity to meet, whether it's at the events, whether it's on away games, whether it's home games. It is brilliant, and like you say, the feedback has been excellent.
Well, in terms of, we'll go a little bit deeper now. In terms of the trolls, we all have them. I have them. You have them. You have them. Yeah. How do you deal with that? Do you deal with that well? Because I know after 4 or 5 years, let me put it another way. When I first got, I don't know whether you're in a similar position to me, Dave, because when I first came in with West Ham Fan TV, I wasn't sort of like an internet person. I didn't know any of the equipment and all that sort of thing. If you look at my tweets, I think I tweeted 2 tweets about 2 years apart once when I first come onto Twitter. I was like, "What's all this about?" And the next one is, "Am I using it right?" That was my knowledge of the internet. I was quite into YouTube and things. I started getting into YouTube, mainly watching funny videos that people were posting up and things like that. Did you feel when you came into this world there was it still is to some extent, some sort of old school sort of circle of people that sort of took the internet at its first conception? If you think about some of the big websites, I won't name them because I don't think it's fair. But did you feel like uninvited into this world, like you're coming? Because that's how I felt when even to some extent now, I feel like because we never had any connections with anyone, we never sort of networked with anyone, we just sort of arrived on the scene. I feel like some of these older sort of social media accounts are like,
I think it's different for me. You might have a different answer, but where we became established and made our name on Facebook,
bit different.
It is a bit different because we never really come into interaction with some of the bigger websites that are well established. And I've personally only been on Twitter for 2 years. So I kind of indirectly eased myself into the kind of playing field, if you like. So it was probably unintentionally an easier transition for me than it was for him.
I mean, I tried when I first started to work with some of these websites, probably the same ones that you're not naming now, and initially they seemed quite keen, but then they just became very, very hostile. And people like to assume that we make an absolute fortune out of what we do, Dave and I, but I can tell you now, 100%, we make nothing from the podcast, absolutely nothing. All that the financial implications are is that I come straight from work, don't see my kids that night because I work in London, so it's closer to just go, and I live up in Essex, so it's obviously on the way home, and that's it. We don't have any payment for it, but certain people that run these websites, it was their job, and it still is their job. So the fact that we've came in and we've, I guess, taken some of their hits and their traffic, it bites into what their actual income was, and they
become really hostile. Sort of like you better stop or.
I think not directly, but certain certain websites though allow, and we all know what we're talking about, comments about myself, and they've allowed comments about you, to happen. Now, when I had a forum on my website, and I have comments that can be written on the article. If anyone writes anything offensive about anyone, even if it's someone I absolutely hate, unless it's like an Artovich or something, I block it out of courtesy and out of respect. I don't think you should get into this. Whereas I have like forum threads about me. The title is ex-WHW employee, and it is literally slagging me off. I have it on about 2 or 3 websites, big websites, and I get constant Twitter messages. Now, I have changed, because the reason I'm speaking about this in a lot of detail is because I get asked this a lot. I've even had questions today whilst we're on the show. How do you deal with all the trolls? Now, initially when I started, I found it very hard. I would react. I'd get upset. I'd get really wound up by it. And gradually, I guess over 8 years of doing it, you get thicker skin. But I have 3 types of trolls. I have the newbies that want to make a name for themselves by slagging me off and impressing their mates. Most of the time they're 15. Most of the time they're virgins, and most of the time they've got more spots than West Ham have got points. Probably, and so that I've got them. I've got the older school people that you're talking about as such, like the don't like the internet, don't like the whole ITK-ness, don't like the whole, like, I guess, what you do, what we do, don't like it because it's not old school, so to speak. It's a new thing and they haven't adjusted with the time, and I just get very angry people that I think are probably quite jealous of I guess the fact that we get to do podcasts and events, and the reason I do that, so I'm getting quite a name now for doing those tweets where I do the eyes, the thumb and the crossed irons when I get something right. And that is literally my way of sticking 2 fingers up to the same people at every window. So I've lost my sources, I'm a fraud, I don't know what I'm talking about, blah, 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 blah. And it's just my way of sticking 2 fingers up and saying, fuck off, I told you, I knew what I was doing. And dealing with trolls and the hate that you can get is probably the hardest thing about what we do. The fact that I stay anonymous and I won't go on camera now, and I won't say what my name is or what my job is, etc., etc. But the main reason I do it is to protect my kids, and that is the real reason. I've got a 8-year-old that's going to start coming to games, a 5-year-old, and a young lad who's not even 1 yet, but I want to go to games with these kids, and I genuinely believe I don't want to put them at risk of getting some comments said to them because of what I do, and that's and that's sad that I have to do that.
But the thing is, you never meet these people. No. Everyone we ever meet is nothing but courteous and respectful, and likes what we do.
Yeah. And no one's ever said anything to my face. You think how much abuse I get? Not once.
Or me. And I'm recognisable. At West Ham, they wouldn't know necessarily what you look like unless they've been to the events or whatever. But it'd be very easy to spot me and have a pop at me. But it's never happened because, and that's one of the biggest problems with the trolls. It's just so easy to sit behind the phone and spread your fucking negative shit, hate-filled life on other people. And some people in life, don't like to see other people do well in any capacity. And if it's in their environment of West Ham, then they find themselves in their element. Yeah, it's exactly.
I actually feel sorry for them now. I've managed to convince myself to get into the psyche that if they've got to find time to log on to a forum, write a paragraph about someone that they don't know, genuinely believe what they're saying when it's 100% false, and get that angry about it. I think, well, blimey, you must be missing something from your life to have to do that. So
I do feel that it's sort of I never think that anything. I find more Facebook than anything if someone's having a pop at you on Facebook because that you've got a name and a face to the person.
That's right.
That it can be a little bit more. But I don't find any of the hate on sort of YouTube comments or Twitter very genuine. No. I think it's always let's have a go at them. They're the big boys in town. Yeah. Let's have a dig at them because it's cool to hate them. If you know what I mean.
It's always fashionable to be anti-establishment, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think the thing to think as well is that if the people meet you in person and they've still got an issue with you, then maybe you can take that as something to be more concerned about. But when they're judging you on your Twitter personality, we kind of talked to this a little bit off air. It's so different to what, well, certainly for me, what I am. You know, I couldn't be more different to what the X character is. So when people are like slating X, it almost doesn't really affect me that much because it's not really me, if that makes any kind of logic to what I'm saying there. But what the thing that is the most annoying is when it's lies. You know, when they genuinely believe that, like, I don't know, I'm being paid to do a podcast, or David Sullivan's on a walkie-talkie keeping me updated with transfer news, like you know, just absolute rubbish stuff. And then you kind of think it's just not true. Like, why are you believing that? But you know, we talk about the negatives, but the positives have far outweighed the negatives of what we've achieved and the opportunities that we've had and the things we've been enabled to do because of the podcast and the events and so on. So, yeah, trolls are always going to be an interesting topic, and I'm glad I've had the opportunity to talk about it, really. And it does, you know, I'll be honest, I'll put it on air now amongst friends. I'm probably not the most mentally strong people to do what I do. You know, I'm not saying I've suffered from massive depression in my life or whatever, but mentally I've not been on the easiest of journeys throughout my life, and to then have to log on to an app and read constant stuff about you can be challenging at times. But I think long term it's taught me strategies to deal with it which have actually benefited me both on Twitter and socially as well.
The one advantage you've got though, if that does happen to you, is that you know that everything that's ever been said about you isn't necessarily personal because they don't know you, know what you look like. I know obviously it's different with your voice. You've had stick in the past about your voice, but that aside, you know, if someone has a pop at me or Nick or whatever, they know what we look like. They can get personal about the way, you know, the way we are or whatever.
Just want to change this camera, Jim.
Yeah, go on, mate.
You can carry on talking. It won't affect it.
Yeah, okay, mate. But then having said that, you know, in comparison between the two of us, you have more volume of shit than I do.
I mean, I think the thing is, obviously, this is where I'm a little bit stupid with dealing with it because I respond to the negative comments when I probably get maybe 3 a day, maybe, and then you think of how many positive ones I get. But because I reply to the negative ones, it looks to the outside like I actually get more than I probably do.
Well,
but
I feel that's a little bit the same as me, X, and I'm trying to change my ways a little bit because I was like that. I was absolutely like that. Just 100%. I could get 1,000 great comments in a day. And I'll pick on the one that was, you know, and then sort of even if people are positive about you, and I've got taught this from early really, and I didn't really heed the advice until sort of recently, because you interact with the negative comment, the positive commenters, the people that do actually like it, think, well, that's the way to get through to them.
That's right.
That's who they're talking to.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's right.
So, yeah, it is a double-edged sword, really.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, I could quite easily stop. There is a simple solution. I could deactivate Twitter, which I almost did when I've been having all this stuff about the African donation and accepting money from Socios, because that then crossed my boundaries of thinking I can understand where they're coming from. I don't agree with you, but I can understand where you're coming from, to actually thinking what the fucking hell is going on here. So to the point where I almost deactivated it. It had only been for like a week or two, just to have a bit of break from it. I don't know what I was going to say about that. Yeah, so I could quite easily stop it, but it's hard when you're in it as much as we are now, and to just suddenly walk away. But don't get me wrong, I love the opportunities that I've been given as a result of doing this. You know, I feel blessed that we're going to Vegas next week. I mean, bloody hell, that's amazing. So, so the positives are there. Oh, well, there you go.
That's not too bad.
Oh, you're meeting Jonathan Spector, though? Oh, I don't know if we are yet, but hopefully.
But no, I see social media as a bit more black and white than that, and I think that's in my makeup, because I do consider myself to be thick-skinned. I don't ever let anything affect me emotionally from a sadness perspective. I've never read anything that makes me feel sad and upset. Yeah. It's the anger. I've read things in the past when I've just got to go back and I've got to go in. And then I think over time, the strategy that I just try and put on it is, look, I don't expect everyone to like me. You know, I've got no right for everyone to like me.
Course, yeah.
I expect people to respect me because I respect them, unless they lose that respect. And I think that should be vice versa. If people disagree with my opinion, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Yeah. That's life.
But just do it respectfully.
Do it respectfully.
Yeah.
And if you're a cunt, you get blocked.
Yeah. No,
and that's how I simplified it, and that's how I live my life.
Do you know what I find funny though? Sometimes when you block people, if you can then look back at their account, they put the picture of you blocking them as like a trophy, and I think that is just ridiculously pathetic. Like that makes you feel good about yourself.
Well, that's one of the things that we did on West Ham Fan TV. We barely block anyone.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we can deal. Well, I can anyway. I'm the sort of person that runs the social media. I can deal with, you know, comments. What I can't deal with is, I'm normally good with myself, you know what I mean? People can have any opinion they want and I'll laugh it off. But what I won't have doing is when they're starting to drag the other boys into it and put them under, you know, because they don't like me, then all of a sudden we're all a bunch of wankers or whatever, you know what I mean? Especially with the stuff with the march and all that sort of stuff, when we got the backlash from that. You know, they was putting people like Dan and Scott and Graham under the same umbrella, and it really had nothing to do. They didn't even know we was doing it after half of it. You know what I mean? Which I thought was bad. But let's go a bit more positive now. Let's go a bit more positive, because you know we don't really want to give the trolls the airtime. The events, hugely successful events, and I've been to a couple. I wish I could get to more, but my match day is filled up enough as it is without getting pissed on free beer before we go to it. But hugely, like, where did it come from? Because I think we can sort of imagine where it come from, but how successful has it been? How much of a pleasure? How much hard work has it been to sort of set these up?
Well, this is why it's sort of the way Dave and I has worked really well, because the podcast was predominantly, I guess, my idea and my thing, whereas the events was more Dave's than mine. And I think we've both been able to sort of see the values that each could bring to the opposites proposal and work well together. And I think Dave and I are very similar in some ways, but very different in others. And I think that is what you need for something to success. It's probably like you and Ryan, I guess. You've got your similarities, your mates, get on very, very well, but different ways of looking at things and making things work that then makes it more successful. And I think, you know, Dave, I mean, you probably want to tell a story, Dave, because you started them, but I'm forever grateful for Dave for getting me involved in events, because it has arguably, with the podcast, been one of the best things in my life, because I've got to meet like ex-players that I grew up like idolising, and just standing there chatting to them in a room, you know, texting them, speaking to them, and I wouldn't have had that opportunity if it wasn't for Dave and Wardy. So
yeah, it is a special event, I have to say. It comes with its challenges.
It's great value.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and that's the thing. Look, we never set out to take the piss. It was never going to be a gravy train for us, because, to be fair, when we started it, we didn't even know if we'd be making money or losing money. And there's been events where we've lost money. Yeah. I mean, I think we've done close to 40 events now, and there have been times when we've had to go home to our respective wives and say, I'm $1,000 in the hole. We didn't make any money. We've got to try and find $1,000 from somewhere.
I've hid that somewhere.
I'm probably a little bit too honest with my missus, to be fair. But, you know, there has been other events where we've made money, and, you know, some people have had an issue with that.
like, when I go to cities like Liverpool and I look at the guys that do the things up there, people are so happy that they're making something of it.
Yeah.
I mean, whereas our fan base, and I'm not saying everybody.
No, of course not.
I'm not saying everybody, because there are a lot of people in sports, but there are a small minority of people that they've had to go at me in the past for making money. They've had to go at Ribman, week in, week out, and like, you know, I've defended the Ribman before. I like Mark a lot, you know. And when I look about, and I defended him against this nasty troll that was taking them the mick out of his, you know, his accident and the fact that he's got a metal leg and whatever, and he's saying to him, how can you rip off fans, blah blah blah, and I'm like, because he's renting a stall at the London Stadium that costs a lot of money for a start. And I said, and I'll tell you something now, I said, he might charge what he charges, but I'd rather eat that food than a lot. I said, I'd rather pay 12 quid for a fucking roll than go and pay 8 quid for a fucking bag of chips.
Yeah, exactly, mate. And also, if it was a rip-off, people wouldn't pay it. This is the say, like, if you don't, exactly, if you don't like it, don't pay for it. Whereas he's really successful. So
they've had a go at us before. I mean, I remember one guy in particular. As I said, it's not many. You know, you say it's all about the fans, but I'm like, well, I'll give up more hours a week doing this than I do my job. If I can sort of sell a T-shirt or you know, make a little bit of advertising, like the fact that you hear me say something for 15 seconds at the beginning of the video when I'm giving you the content for free, I'm doing all this for free, and it's the money comes, like, why not?
Nick, I just don't get it. I don't get it. I mean,
you're providing something to people. Don't get me wrong. If it's if you turn around and say sort of like, you have to pay. And everyone has to pay, or something that West Ham bought in. Then, but if it's something that people are happy to pay with, how can you ever go?
I've turned down writing for newspapers on very decent sums of money to stop doing X, but tell them, and they'll pay. I've been offered, like, I mean, you've seen some of them, like 4-figure sums for some of my stories, and I've turned it down because I don't want that to be what it's about, and fans don't know that, but. Yeah, I mean, the events, for me, like you said, value for money. I mean, you spend £30, you can drink all you want, you're right near the stadium, you get to meet...
I've been to some of your events, mate. There's some people don't leave the bar.
No, exactly.
They're doing circles. You know, especially when it's at the Workman's Club, they're going up getting a pint, they're drinking it before they get and just joining the queue again.
And to be fair, good luck to them, because that's part of the package. There's no small print, and it is, and we... I mean... There was a romantic story about doing it at the Working Man's Club, because obviously we're taking people back to our spiritual home during a dark time in Stratford where people were struggling to embrace it. So we did it there. The venue was absolutely perfect. Obviously, Waldy's a good friend of ours, so he was the host. And everything just fitted into place. You know, we negotiated the bar bill, you know, found the raffle girls, sourced the prizes, sorted out the coach journeys to and from. And it just worked really, really well. It was structured well, and everyone had a brilliant time. The most challenging part of it now is getting people to embrace moving to Leytonstone as opposed to the Working Man's Club, because even though it's closer, it doesn't have the history that Upton Park had to pull people there. I mean, I still think it's fantastic value for money. The event structurally hasn't changed, but it has been challenging, especially getting some of the old faces that were institutionalised by the East End Working Men's Club to O'Neill's in Leytonstone. So we'll have to see what the numbers are like going into this season, but all we can do is our best and hope that people continue to embrace it. It's a bit like when West Ham moved from Upton Park to Stratford. It's the same concept with us moving our events, and it wasn't by choice. They sadly closed their doors like many institutions did around there, so we had to find a suitable venue, and we thought and still think that O'Neill's is that.
Yeah, and I mean, we've got some great guests lined up for this season, if they'll confirm and be a bit more reliable, but we've got some great guests lined up, and I think, you know, for me, what I find interesting as well is our events are usually more popular when it's either a current player or an absolute legend. And I think in some ways, naively, some fans discriminate against a player that may not have played, 200, 300 times in the club, may not have been particularly that good a player, but some of the times they have the better stories because they're the ones that have played with these quality players and they can give an honest opinion. Like some of the best ones we've had, like, Kenny Brown, for example, he played 80 times in the club, absolute lovely fella, scored a great goal against Man United, important one. Dad's obviously an absolute legend, and we couldn't sell that many tickets for it. And we've had other guests, don't want to name them, it's a bit embarrassing I guess for them, but they're absolute like stories were hilarious, they're brilliant, but just because they weren't quite that top tier of legend status.
Maybe naively, but in my mind as a fan, if I pretend that I had nothing to do with the event whatsoever and I knew it was on, and I go to West Ham every single Saturday and I like a beer with my mates, I know that if I buy a round in Stratford, it's going to cost me 25-30 quid on a round. Whereas if I go there, I ain't got to worry. I can have as much as I want to drink. Music's absolutely quality because I pick it. It's good banter throughout, with Waldy and a brilliant Q&A. And I just think that there's so much more to the event than just a Q&A.
Yeah, sure.
People should go there and actually show some respect to the person that's been interviewed. Even if he's played once for West Ham, he's still worn that claret and blue shirt with that badge on his chest, who will probably have amazing stories like X said. I mean, some of our biggest surprises at the events have come from players that you wouldn't have thought were the biggest draws. Yeah. But they've been like stand-up comedians, some of them.
I mean, and you look at our podcast as well, where we've had Darren Blewett, who never actually made an official appearance for West Ham, Neil Finn, who made one, and some of the stories that they told were as interesting, if not more interesting, than a player whose stories you've heard many times before. I think it's underappreciated, the impact a story from a lesser known player can have. But the events I love doing. I can't wait for the first one, which will be the Norwich one. We work hard at the events, but to see the reaction of the fans and the reaction of the fans to the player, like standout moments for me, like Christian Daly, for example, when everyone's seen "You're the love of my life, I'll let you shag my wife," that sort of song, and he's just standing there at the front, conducting it and stuff.
For a long time, he didn't embrace that too well.
Oh, he was brilliant for us, wasn't he? Yeah, brilliant.
Choice, to be fair.
No, but yeah.
Pissed up West Ham fans, so you ain't gonna get up and walk out.
No, that's true, but a couple of players have been a bit apprehensive about doing it, haven't it? And then they've said to us afterwards, because they weren't sure what the fan reaction would be, they said to us it meant so much to be able to come back and get that appreciation. I think Matty might have been one of the ones that said it, Matty Everington.
Quite a few people have. Do you know what? And that's the thing where these events go that little bit further than people realise. We've had players, and you named one of them there, but other players, and it's not fair to name these ones, there's two in particular that have actually said the same thing without realising they both said it. They both said, you've made me feel alive again with these events. I know it sounds a bit corny, but some of these people, and it's well documented that some players struggle after the retirement of football. To go from that adulation of 35,000 fans every week to nothing, and suddenly you're not important in a lot of people's eyes, to then get the chance to go and sit in front of those fans that once adored you and have your name chanted over and over again, and have a queue of people lining up to get your autograph and have a picture with you. Yeah. These players genuinely feel like they've
revitalised.
Absolutely revitalised. And then of course it's the punter and the fans that have come. The feedback we've had from these events, people just say, we've had a shit day at the football, but we went to the event, so we've had a good day. And a lot of people say that, the events are the best part of our day. Yeah. And just have a great time.
The event is the only thing they remember of the day.
Yeah, true. That is true.
Talking about the event, just as we're coming to finish up, and we'll talk about the West Ham. Have you still got time?
Of course, mate. Yeah.
There's one in America coming up.
Yeah, I know.
I've got some friends that run a Liverpool channel, and it's always something I sort of looked at. We've never toured in America. They tour in America quite a lot. And I was thinking, I'd love to do something in another country. And I did get to do something in another country recently in America when I went to America last year. And we done a video on the Tampa Hammers, which was something I wanted to do, but money was. Yeah, it was really interesting. Like little supporters group went to a bar where they sort of film. They meet up to watch the games, and we filmed the whole day. It was really, really interesting to see where these people come from and how they. It was a great little video to make, and I want to do more. So when you guys said you're going to Las Vegas, which is somewhere I've never been.
Yeah, me neither.
The jealousy went off the scale, and do you know what? I was looking at. I was thinking, how can I get out there? I just can't. I've got to go to Mexico the week after. So
that's not too sad.
No, I'll survive, but maybe in the future, and there's another one, I'll come.
Yeah, oh, gotcha.
How did this come about, and how successful has the feedback been, and how great is the feedback?
It's a massive credit to John Black, who's known as Las Vegas Hammer, is he on Twitter? I can't remember if he approached me or you first, one of us first. No, he approached one of us first and said, look, all the supporters groups in America regularly talk about having like a convention, like one big meet-up rather than being in their sort of individual pockets in their states and stuff. And he was the first one, I guess, to really take the bull by the horns and actually try to establish a venue and place, etc., etc. He spoke to Dave and I because obviously we've got a tried and trusted formula that worked, and so, but sorry, the distraction at the door there. Trying to win a formula, and basically they said, can we replicate our event from in London in America? And so we're hoping to make this an annual thing, because some West Ham fans, some American West Ham fans, were a bit annoyed that it was in Las Vegas. The question was, why Las Vegas and why not perhaps somewhere more central like Chicago maybe, where people can sort of come from all directions to. But it was just because he was the first person to actually do something about it, and Las Vegas is quite a cool place to go to anyway. So and then we just worked with him. But to be fair, he's done most of it.
If you go to the centre of America where everyone is, it'll probably be some little town in the middle of nowhere that's got a barn and a chemist.
Yeah,
true. Las Vegas is the place. Isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and this guy John, who we didn't know, we've got to know very well, and he's very credible. And we've had conference calls with him, and he's a lovely fella. But what I liked about him was he essentially said, look, conceptually, I understand what you do with these events. I can deliver exactly the same, but we want you guys and your brand to sell it, and we want to bring you out here to be part of it. So ultimately, and John, ironically, I think is from Canning Town, so he's not an American himself. We're looking just to take a little bit of East End flavour to Vegas, and I think it's just going to be a right good crack, and in between everything that the event comprises of is the game. The one killer about it is the time difference, because obviously they're 8 hours behind, so the event itself starts at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the game is televised. All you can drink, breakfast buffet, might need that to line the stomach, and then obviously the game kicks off at 7 in the morning, and then we'll do a little bit after that. So it's a 4-hour event, but it'd be magic. I mean, I think there's a few lads from the UK that's flying over there. Baz Cox is going, and we've got a lot of followers from this show that are going to be out there as well, so we can't wait to meet them. And we're just buzzing. I think we go on the 15th, come back on the 20th, and the event's on the 17th, so it's going to be...
I'm going to try and film like Dave and my experience in Vegas, obviously at the event, but around the event as well. So like the starting off in England, the getting to America. So I will try and put a lot of... Pardon? A vlog, I might try to. I just won't be in it. It'll be one man only.
So I'll take all the risks.
Yeah, exactly. So you like see Dave skydiving off the Grand Canyon and stuff. Oh no, I'll have the important bit of filming it, but I'm absolutely buzzing for it. I can't wait, and we'd love to do it in other countries as well. We've got quite a large following in like Dublin and Scandinavia, Ireland and Scandinavia, and even Australia. That would be quite an amazing one. But we're looking forward to it. There's lots of West Ham podcasts, American supporters, all going to be in the same place, and it should be amazing. I thank John for putting it all together and making us feel such an important part of it.
I think we're also going to be recording a live podcast out there with an audience as well. Which you know more about than I do, but...
I think what it is the people, when they pay for their tickets as part of the package of the ticket the next day, Dave and I have the same venue, I think, booked. We're all set up to record the podcast with all the right equipment and so on, and we're just going to do it as we do here, but actually have a live audience, so they'll be able to ask us questions as we're doing it, and... and we'll see, because we've never done anything like that before, and I'm not the most confident of people to do these sorts of things, so it's going to be a new area for me. Maybe a few beers will be sunk beforehand, but it should be exciting. It should be exciting.
To answer your question, in terms of the success of the event so far, I think we were aiming for 50, hoping for 60, and I think we've sold 80.
Nearly 100. I think it's 95.
Is it 95 now? So, you know, it's far exceeded our expectations. So it's going to be brilliant, mate. Can't wait.
Let's talk about West Ham. That's what we all do this for, is the love of West Ham. How happy are you with the business we've done? I mean, you're the guy to ask, because you probably know about business that you don't even know.
Well, do you know what? I actually didn't say it on the show today. I might drop you a little exclusive in for this, because I forgot to say it on the show, so I might as well say it now. We were actually, before we got Allaire, and there was another striker in the Italian league that we were offering some real substantial money for, apparently. They wanted ridiculous amounts for him, but the reason I'm saying this is that it was nice to see that we were determined to get that top quality forward, which I think we've got now, and that fills me with much more confidence going into the season.
It just feels a little bit to me like they actually fucking mean it this time. Do you know what I mean? Like there was times when I think they was just trying to appease people when we went into the Olympic Stadium, but they actually mean business now, you know. And maybe it was down to fans like me who were just too impatient. You know, expecting it all to change overnight. Maybe, I don't know. But look, you guys are seen to be sort of like, in the public eyes, as pro-ball. I could guarantee you now, you've got the same gripes as we have, and you know. But and I've always said to you, Dave, I remember seeing you at Old Trafford once. Funny enough, when we was at that FBA Awards, and you know, I was fucking whinging like I always do, and he was like, "Come on, mate, like give it a, you know, try smiling, try doing." And I turned around and said to you, "I wish I could have your positive outlook on life, you know." I know you get a little bit of stick for it at times, but do you think we're all getting on the same page now, sort of thing?
Well, first and foremost, you know, one thing that needles me, because it's a shame more than anything else, is that there still seems to be this us and them culture. I just wish that everyone could get on the same page and all just go forward together. And listen, I will say now, I have absolutely no problem in saying I'm pro-ball. You know, I'm not coming out saying I'm an alcoholic, and that's how sometimes you're viewed by saying that. You know, I will stop being pro-bald when the owners of this football club give me a valid reason to stop being pro-bald, and that's the biggest misconception of me and X.
What I think is important to say, I mean, I actually would say that I'm bored.
Regardless, I mean, by the way, regardless of how they...
I'd actually sort of like to say that I'm board neutral. Like, I don't have a real positivity for them, but I have a real negativity. I almost judge it on a kind of like a 3-month review type thing, like on what the transfer business has been like, how we're performing on the pitch, what they've done for the stadium, and so on. And as Dave has said, I think if people just listen to certain podcasts that we've done, you know, we're talking about socios, I guess, we're talking about negative PR that the club's created, we're talking about poor transfer windows, poor signings, poor managerial appointments. We call it out as if the most negative of board opinionator would be. Like we judge it as we see it, and I think people just love to dismiss us as pro board and almost discredit what we're saying. Oh, they're pro board. I still get it now. I'm going to almost name and show. I'm not going to name them because that'll give them too much satisfaction. But there's a couple, a female and a male, that I think their biggest chemistry between them, and they're a couple, like an actual proper item, is when they say, "Yeah, but board's X is David Sullivan's mouthpiece," and they say it to each other all the time, and then put hearts and cracking up faces to each other as if that's a way to kind of like romance each other. But and then it's the most pathetic thing I've ever seen.
Probably wears an X mask whilst he's giving it.
Yeah, probably. God, that would be quite disturbing. But but exactly. Yeah, I should really sell more of those, shouldn't I? But yeah, exactly. But what I'm saying by this is that people just love to throw that comment at us that we're board lovers, and that means therefore our opinions don't count. But actually, we're not. We judge it as the situation.
The thing is, with it, like to me, does it matter? Do you know what I mean? Like, does it matter if you are like, I've met people that will make the excuses to the end of the earth for the ball. Do you know what I mean? So you know what I mean? Like, that's right. You don't have to admit, like, everyone's entitled to an opinion. Of course, everybody's entitled to an opinion. And I was quite vocally very, like, I wouldn't say against the ball. I've never been against the ball, because to say I'm against the ball means I'm against my football club, because they are the owners and custodians of my football club at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Did I like some of the stuff they did? Not really.
No.
But I support my football team, and they are the people in charge of my football team. Do I always think they've done the right things? Probably not. But I've always been like this. And you alluded to this earlier, Dave. There are people that would just say it now because they've said it in the past, and that they can't. Their minds can't be changed because to say, yeah, I actually agree with what they're doing now. Would sort of show them up.
Yeah, it takes a lot for people to admit that.
Well, I've always been. It's not admitting it. I've always said it. When they're doing bad things, I'll be angry. When they're doing good things, I'll credit them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'll credit them to the end of. And I think, to be honest with the business we've done so far in the summer, I'm looking forward to this season more than I've looked forward to any season. Probably in my history. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's more. I think they're doing things the right way. The £45 million striker, they've got a bad egg out and got someone that's double the pricing, who looks to be, he's a proper centre forward for a start. They've got a guy that looks to be the new David Silva, as far as I can see. He looks absolutely magnificent. And then, then the people were still moaning. I'd already thought we'd had a good window. We had to get rid of Obiang. We had to get rid of Arnautovic. That was just dead wood, which is something I've been saying for a long time. And they've signed 2 youngsters that look very, very promising for very, very good money. I've got nothing to moan about.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very interesting beginning of the season, West Ham TV, because I think Fan TV, because it's the first time I don't think I've ever had anything to moan about, and I'm really, really, really looking forward to it.
Well, do you know what? I mean, I'd like to add to that. First and foremost, like I said earlier on, the biggest misconception is that we are bald lovers, and that definition basically means no matter what they do, good or bad, we're going to love them, we're going to publicly back them. Right? Biggest load of bollocks ever. And the biggest case in point of that was, I think it was not last season before, it might have been last season actually, before we made the signings. We both came out, me especially, saying if they don't spend decent money this window, it's time for them to go. Now, a bald lover wouldn't say that. I call it as I see it. I've always taken risks and I speak from the heart, and that will never ever change. But looking at it now, looking at the here and now, right, we've got, in my opinion, a beautiful stadium with a decent capacity that fans are warming to every season that we're there, creating memories, winning big games, etc. We've got a fantastic squad of players. David Gold tweeted it's the best squad he's seen in 25 years or whatever it might have been. It's the best squad I've seen in a hell of a long time. We've got players there that are exciting to watch, are going to be entertaining, which is what West Ham fans demand. We've got a manager there who's incredibly well paid, that we're all very happy with. We've got a backroom staff we really like. We're paying big transfer fees, big transfer wages. When you look at that collectively, am I pro ball? You're fucking right, I'm pro ball. Because look at what you're doing with my football club. And apart from any of that, you're doing it whilst financially protecting my football club. So I haven't got to worry about being a Wimbledon fan or a Bolton fan or seeing my team like Leeds did when Ridsdale spent a shitload of money, took a gamble, bit them in the arse and then fucking went into oblivion. That can happen to any football club, including West Ham.
Coventry, they're playing
exactly. It's endless. There's loads of clubs like it, and West Ham ain't one of them because of the current owners that we have. And they take the spot. I think too many fans focus on how much we've spent rather than the way we've spent it.
I agree.
You know, and that's a real frustration of mine. You know, if Wilshere turns out to be an incredible player for us this season, are people going to moan that we didn't pay 40 million for him? Is it a problem that we signed him for nothing? So I think there is a mixture of people not liking who the Bald are as people, which is fair enough. You know, I get that. They're not the most likeable bunch in a lot of people's eyes. But then there are the people that think, it's cool to be anti-establishment, and no matter what they do for West Ham, they can win the league. I'm never going to want them fucking scumbags. They rip the art out of West Ham. I couldn't disagree more.
What I would say, from someone that's been on that side of the argument, and you know, as I said, I've never been one of them people that, you know, I've got my opinion and nothing's going to change it. Is it wasn't only that for me about like the signings and all that. Look, this football club's been through fucking turmoil. I've been there, you know, a long time before these come. And at the end of the day, like, no matter what I say about them or what anybody says about them, if they had taken over it, we would have been at Wimbledon or a Coventry. We would have been playing League 2 non-league football now. I've got no doubt about it. But it was the way some of the things they'd gone about, and I said to you on your podcast last week is, you know, when you're whinging about them to shut up, don't, you know, stop saying this, stop saying that, get off of social media, you're embarrassing us here, embarrassing us there. They're learning, and I don't know whether that's because of, you know, just constant years of going through the grind, and then they think, well, something's got to change, or it's the new manager and the new director of football and all that sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? That sort of directed them away and just said, look, be quiet now, let the big boys take over, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? But I would be a hypocrite if I sat there and started moaning about something else, because they're the things I was moaning about.
That's right.
And they seem to be correcting them, and they actually seem to be getting it right now.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, the thing is that the boys, I mean,
They grow up.
Yeah, they grow up. I mean, how they were ever allowed. Listen, the owners of this football club are not perfect. They'll probably be the first to tell you they're not perfect.
They will tell you.
They've made some incredible mistakes, some jaw-dropping mistakes. But there's no bigger mistake than taking your club down or even out of existence, because then you ain't gonna have a fucking club to moan about.
There's no coming back from that.
Exactly, and they've done the opposite, whilst cleaning up their image to a degree. When I say that, when was the last time you heard from David Sullivan? Yeah. When was the last time he done an interview or was, you know, seen to be actively doing something on social media? The boys have grown up, realised the errors of their ways. You know, David Gold, I think, is a lovely fella. He's been on this podcast, you know, and these ain't Arabs that don't give two shits about West Ham. They're West Ham people. Now, whether you want to believe that or not, believe me when I say they are West Ham people. I don't think Karen Brady is, but I'm not including her in this. David Gold and David Sullivan are West Ham people, and I've known for a number of years now that where we are now was always going to be the plan.
Yeah.
This is always where they wanted to take West Ham, competing for Europe, signing top quality players in a stadium that fans embrace, and that's where we're going now. And I'm loving every minute of it. You know, like you, I'm excited to go into the new season, and I just wish that everyone could come together now and just support every single element of this football club, because that can only be a positive thing, you know.
We'll have to start wrapping it up, gents. We're running out of battery on everything. We're running out on everything. You see me, I've been running around, like you won't see it in the edit because I've read it out. I've been running around like a lunatic while Dan's sitting on his arse in his mum. You know what I mean? Thank you so much, gents. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I hope that comes across all right.
It came across brilliantly, and I wish you all the luck for your event.
Yeah,
I'll see you through the season. I don't need to wish you all the best because I'll see you every week. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Of course, mate.
We'll bump into each other on the way. Hopefully, come the end of the season, I can come back on yours, you can come back on mine, and we can talk about something very, very, very positive.
That'd be great.
Maybe a trip to Europe next year.
Keep the faith. Keep the faith.
Thanks, gents. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, mate. Good luck to you boys as well.
Don't forget to tune into it. Go on, I'll let you give you a radio station little plug. Go on.
Yeah, so it's the West Ham Way on Phoenix FM, but you can find it as a downloadable podcast on Spotify, iTunes. Is that about it?
There's more Mixcloud.
Mixcloud. I think just Google it or go into those respective platforms.
Any events? Where do we get the event tickets?
So you can do that on the West Ham Way website. There's a West Ham Way app via Dave or my Twitter accounts, Facebook. We're pretty much everywhere. So if you don't like us, well, you can't really avoid us. So, so you should be able to find them.
Tickets is always typically a pinned tweet for that event coming up. So check us out on Twitter to cut the corner.
Listen, do it. It's immense value for money. Even if you don't think you're interested in a guest, trust me, go along, you'll be pleasantly surprised. I've been to a few. As I said, gents, should we say one thing left to say?
Come on, your irons.